today we have Liz from South Yorkshire Primary Care Workforce and Training Hub. Hi Liz, tell us a bit about why you've come today.
Hello. So I'm a project manager with the Workforce and Training Hub in South Yorkshire, and for those of you who have been following, I've got a written blog that's been published since April, and it's all about my views and my kind of highs and lows really on this project. And we thought today that we would, because we're talking about technology, try something a little bit different. So we're doing a video blog, and hopefully later on there'll be a little bit of a surprise that we'll share with the audience.
Sounds intriguing. Why are you trying to find different methods of training? Obviously, stereotypically, people have always used the same methods of training. Why have you decided to try different methods?
Well, I think for us in primary care, we're at a different position. So secondary care, for example, have large trusts that will have a HR department that will monitor and deliver training that's needed for their clinicians to do their job. In primary care, it's slightly different because each practice is an individual organisation that looks after their own HR and looks after their own training. There's no one central place that delivers that training.
So what you're saying is there's no standardisation?
Yeah, so one clinician might go to one provider, pay one amount and get one experience, and then another will have a totally different provider, a different experience, and pay another amount.
So that must be difficult for people moving between trusts, say. They can go from one doctor's surgery to another and there'll be totally different experiences.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, a lot of the practices now are working well within their primary care network, so it's a lot bigger, they've got a lot more support now, and they can speak to their colleagues and kind of compare stories really and compare providers of training. But yeah, it needs to have one central point of delivery, I think.
Yeah. So what new methods of tools are you thinking of introducing into your training?
So there's a lot out there at the moment. There's a lot of work happening on sort of digital scenarios using artificial intelligence, using virtual reality, got a visitor,
Right.
augmented reality, or a mix of both that we refer to as extended realities.
Sounds exciting. Sounds like people will want to learn.
Yeah.
What do you hope to achieve by using these training methods?
So, as I say, there are suppliers out there that are creating this kind of online content already. But what we want to do is to basically prove that we can use these tools for a better quality experience with learning, to increase capacity and access to that learning. So we can actually offer a blend of different accesses. So there might be someone sat at their desk in their practice, there might be 25 sat at home, there might be 30 in a face-to-face environment, but they're all accessing the same training, hopefully with the same quality experience.
So I visualise people in a classroom with VR headsets on, integrating in their learning experience, absorbed within their learning experience. Is that what you see happening?
I think so, ultimately, yes, but it depends on kind of the amount of kit that we can get hold of. So obviously at the moment what we're trying to do is test out these theories and test out a training session that will include a digital scenario with an avatar, for example, within a training session. What we'd like to do is to test out that feeling of being immersed in that environment. So while we are testing, it will still be a small percentage of those that will have access to the VR headsets, for example. But what we can do then is test the difference between somebody who's fully immersed with a headset on, or somebody who is doing a face-to-face training and accepting it in the kind of the old-fashioned kind of didactic way, compared to somebody who's logged on just using a laptop. So we want to be able to prove or disprove that actually having a headset and having a fully immersive experience enhances the quality of that training.
To my mind, it's going to be better for different learning styles. I see people getting immersed, it being a more interactive experience. Can you explain a bit more how you see it progressing?
Yeah, so usually, for example, if it's in a face-to-face scenario, you may well practice on a patient, or maybe even an actor that is pretending to be a patient. I think for us, what it's about is trying to deliver something or create a tool that someone can use over and over again and just press the reset button if anything happens. So if we use the example of artificial intelligence, an avatar that is set within a clinical space that's experiencing an anaphylactic shock, for example. On some of these platforms, it allows you to be able to drive the scenario and do different things with or for that patient.
Right.
So you may have access to the patient notes, you may have access to diagnostic equipment, you could take bloods, you can ask the virtual healthcare assistant to do something for you, you can ring a consultant, you can ring for the doctor next door. And what this enables you to do is actually see the reaction of the patient as a direct result of your actions as a clinician.
And absorb the experience.
So, I wonder if you did notice our special guest obviously appeared during our conversation there, and here she is back again. So I'd like you to introduce you to the avatar of me. This is Liz 2.0, potentially much improved. I don't know.
To show what we can do with amazing technology.
Exactly.
We can use avatars for a lot of things, can't we?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think really this, obviously we're doing this now as a bit of a light-hearted joke and what have you, but to be able to see how lifelike an avatar can be and how they can move, how they can behave and how they can speak.
How they can interact with the rest of us.
Exactly. It just proves, I suppose, that, you know, this is something that we can put in place that is scalable. So, you know, there's a lot of people that can access this. If this was only one person, obviously that's going to be very difficult for a lot of people to access if they are the focus of the training. Liz 2 can be, you know, shared on a platform with a lot of people accessing, and a lot of people can practice conversations with her at once. So again, it's about that scalability, it's about value for money, it's about, you know, each interaction will have a fraction of the cost as opposed to bringing a human or an actor or something in there, but equally you get that human response.
I was just thinking exactly the same. It's amazing how you can portray emotions using an avatar that possibly you can't get across with staged videography.
Yeah. And I suppose as well, as much as a mannequin is really good, then, you know, a mannequin doesn't have those facial reactions. You can't see rashes appear potentially, unless you have a really expensive mannequin that has that kind of thing. This we can program to do whatever we want to. Which is unfortunate for Liz, probably.
Yes, I presume you can deform bones, you can displace joints, there's no end to what we can do with Liz. Can you give us an example, Liz, of how you feel these tools are going to be used?
Yeah, of course. So we've got different varying degrees of complexity when it comes to avatars and artificial intelligence. But we've actually been working with Keele University to produce a couple of avatars. In the scenario, this couple have come from a kind of rural area. They're of Eastern European background. And the scenario is that the clinician has an inkling that there might be a case of modern slavery here. Right. And what they need to do, what a clinician needs to do, is to be able to practice handling that conversation well, so that they get to a point where they can offer help for the person who is experiencing the modern slavery out of the couple. So, and I know that sounds a really bizarre kind of scenario.
Very one-off, I would hope.
Yeah, it is. I mean, within South Yorkshire, you might have kind of 99.5% of the population never experience that within a clinical setting. However, 100% of those clinicians that are safeguarding trained will need to know how to handle that kind of conversation. So I think that for us is kind of providing the ability to do so, again, in a safe environment, but without kind of having the need to really be in that. And be in that situation. Yeah.
That's the perfect use for it. Will these experiences with these avatars change depending on what stages you take? I
think so, yeah. There's obviously, it depends on how we program that avatar. So we may start at a very low kind of introductory level, go to an intermediary, and then go up to kind of medic level that will have a lot more of a complicated situation or scenario to deal with. I think for us, I think what sticks with me, particularly with this scenario, is the fact that I watched a demo with a nurse. We were just on our laptops on Teams, as everyone is now, and because the guy that was running the demonstration was running the scenario, the reaction or the kind of deterioration of the patient was very real, and therefore the reaction of the nurse watching the deterioration of the patient equally was very real. So she had an emotional and physical response to watching the patient deteriorate in front of her.
And from experience, an automatic reaction as to what she should do next,
Exactly.
I should imagine.
Yeah. So her instincts were kicking in all over the place, saying, no, you need to do this, you need to give her oxygen, you need to... And obviously the guy that was running the demonstration wasn't doing it quick enough because he needed to show us how to access those different tools.
Yeah. So what you're saying, by working with this kind of scenario, using the avatars, using the virtual technology, people will actually become, their adrenaline will flow. You can watch something on a screen and you just stare at it. But when you're immersed in it, when you're part of that scenario, your bodily functions will, you'll sweat, your adrenaline will go. It's more like the real world scenario.
Yeah, and I think this is really why we want to test that out. We can understand, and we've seen it from as I say, from a hospital point of view in an emergency department. Yeah. So how will that transfer across to primary care, where you may see potentially less dramatic experiences of a patient? Yeah. However, saying that, we do have times where patients will come in and they're about to have a heart attack, or they've had a very minor heart attack. So how do we deal with that?
How do you teach that sort of thing? How do you teach them reactions?
Well, this is what we're trying to find out now, I think. Obviously, clinicians will go through their usual route or whichever path they've chosen to get to a particular qualification. So for us, it's about kind of enabling to put their skills into practice, their learned skills into physical practice in a safe way without exposing them potentially to patients first.
It sounds, to me, the future. For sure. Are there anybody else doing this kind of thing?
So at the moment, there's very small pockets of people doing these. It may be one team that concentrates. It's an ophthalmology team, for example, and they found a tool that will help them deliver a certain training, to make it better, to make it a better experience. I've kind of linked up with a few different groups that are bringing these pockets of people together and pockets of work. And what we're doing now is learning from each other, sharing experiences, sharing what's good and what's bad about it, and sharing evaluation.
Brilliant.
Obviously, the technology enhanced learning team from HEE are really kind of supporting this pioneering work. Yeah. I think for us, there's a lot more of the if I said low fidelity and low tech scenarios happening in primary care. And what I mean by that is that we know that there are groups going to primary care, going to a PCN potentially, a primary care network, and actually delivering a training session with either a really good mannequin or a patient that's an actor, and running a scenario with the whole team. So it truly is kind of a multidisciplinary team event where they learn together and they realise then very quickly what each other does in a day-to-day basis.
They bounce off each other as well, don't they? Experiences.
So I think, as I say, there's varying different focuses, there's varying different uses of technology. Some are high-tech, some are low-tech. I think one of the things that I'd like to do, and I've got the backing of the TEL team at HEE, is to actually bring a primary care specific focused group of those people that are doing this thing for primary care. And I think if we can learn from each other, and as I say, share suppliers, share learning, we can help each other, and we can maybe waste less money and work together.
And then I visualise you building up a big library, but collectively.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? We want to be able to get a platform where we can share these different scenarios. We know that there is a platform already that shares written descriptions of scenarios, but I think what we need is a shared NHS store of content, of online content.
Up-to-date content.
Up-to-date content, exactly. And from the testing, I suppose what I want to do really from each individual learning session with the different tools is to be able to create that library of scenarios and create that library of case studies that I can then make decisions from and carry some forward, understand what needs tweaking, what needs changing, and understanding really what doesn't work.
Yeah.
So then from that learning, I can hopefully then prove the case that we need a centralised point. We need a one-stop shop for training for primary care. And again, share those learnings with the rest of the primary care focused NHS that are doing this.
Well, Yorkshire seems to make sense, doesn't it, as it's the centre of the country. Do you have any difficulties getting hold of the content for this kind of thing? Because obviously it's very, very new technology.
Yeah, I think there's varying degrees of technology that's out there at the moment. There are some really good content providers. They've worked, again, with clinical advisors. A lot of the scenarios at the moment are more secondary care, so again, hospital-based. So what we're trying to do, or what we'd like to do, is actually work with some content providers to try and change that, to tweak that, to use our South Yorkshire clinical expertise to create something bespoke for us. Obviously that takes time, it takes commitment, and it takes money. But then we've also found that the smaller providers that will use kind of tools that are already out there, digital solutions that they'll put together a package for us. So they may use something that's already really good in the gaming world that we can potentially harness and change and fit to what we want. But I think the key for us is the fact that using these different tools and using these different content providers within a training session. So we've used South Yorkshire expertise, clinical expertise and educators to actually write those sessions. So it feels very much South Yorkshire, it feels very much bespoke for us.
Where do you see it going with the future of your training hub?
We understood, obviously, through research and knowing primary care as we do, that there are gaps. So we wanted, as I say, to test out some of this theory to see if it worked. The future for me is ultimately having that library of scenarios, something that we can take forward, roll out to primary care as an excellent standard of, you know, this is what we've done for you, it's bespoke for you, come and access it, and take that and actually then create a training centre, an innovation centre, where it will be the one-stop shop for primary care training. And I suppose from that point of view, we then extend or expand the term primary care. So it's not just about general practice and GP surgeries anymore. It then becomes about community pharmacy, community eye care, community dentistry. You know,
so all the places people take that first step, ask for that first lot of help.
Exactly, that front door, really, isn't it? It's front door to the healthcare system. And I think that hopefully expanding that will mean that we bring their training closer to them as well. I mean, I know obviously we said, you know, we want to be able to offer a blend, so some will access remotely. However, we know the power and the kind of the benefit that we get from face-to-face interaction and the benefit we get from a multidisciplinary team together, learning together and kind of reenacting together and kind of going through the scenarios. We know that there's a lot of research out there that says that works.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, it's been enlightening. It's been interesting. It's been a pleasure to meet you, Liz.
Thank you.
And we hope to follow your progression to see what does happen next.
Thank you.
Thank you.